Hello, welcome to lesson 2 of Dani's GWTP course. So, we start with creating your first GWTP project. We are going to use the GWTP Eclipse plugin to create your first project. So let's go straight to Eclipse and get started. Here on Eclipse, if you have the plugin working, you'll see this button on the toolbox here. Click the GWTP button and choose GWTP Project. Here I'll name my project Dani GWTP. I'll make a package for it. The two things I want to talk about here are those two checkboxes on the bottom here. The Use App Engine checkbox will install and configure the Google App Engine SDK on your project. But since we are not talking about it, we are not going to check it. And you can also generate sample data for your project. We don't want to do that. We want to start from scratch. And that means that your project will not work right away. If you create a project and run, it should give you an error. And the reason why is that we don't have a presenter yet. We don't have the default place set yet. And that's the next thing we are going to do. So just finish here. With the GWTP plugin created our project. The only thing you want to check is be sure that on the Google Web Toolkit settings menu of your project, you have the GWT SDK set right here. Especially if you have different versions of the SDK installed like I do, make sure that you have it right here. The GWTP plugin created all the files you needed for a GWTP project. Those are a lot of files. You will know what each means later, but what is important is that your GWTP project was created successfully. Everything on your project, everything the user can see, is a view presenter pair. The model view presenter pattern that the GWTP implements says that the view is just an interface that displays data. And that's a very important thing. You will not have any kind of code or business logic code on your view. Your view will not have access to your model, for example. Like moving things from your model to your view will be done at the presenter. So the presenter acts upon the model and the view. Your client-side business logic code will be in the presenter. So most of your code will be in the presenter. The view will have mostly generated code, getters and setters, and access to your widgets. Well, there are two kinds of views you can use: pure Java based and Y-binder based. With the Java option, which was the first option available in GWT, you will do all your layout, all your widgets, everything that's on the screen is instantiated in Java. You don't touch HTML code at all. And this is good because you only code once and it will run well, will run good at all browsers supported by GWT. What's the downside of using pure Java, in my opinion, is that layouting shouldn't be done in Java or JavaScript. You have the browsers today have a lot of optimizations to make layouting really fast. As long as you are layouting in a HTML way, and if you are doing strange things in JavaScript with a big and complex screen, the user experience will get really bad. Things will be really slow. For simple layouts, anyway will work fine, but for more complex layouts with many widgets and many things getting resized when the browser is resized, things like that, is it, it's going to get slow. And another thing I personally don't like about using pure Java is that you don't have control over your HTML code by design, okay, but I think that not having control over your HTML code today is bad. Well, GWT was created when IE6 was the most used browser out there, so you it was a big hassle to make one HTML code that would work everywhere, and this was what GWT was about. But today, IE8 is the most used IE out there, which is mostly standard compliant and for what it supports, and creating HTML code that will work everywhere isn't such a hassle anymore. And why is it good to have control over your HTML? Because of the new features of HTML5 and CSS3. So you have animations, you have new CSS selectors that if you want to use it, you have to have control over your HTML. And that's why here we are going to use YBinder. With YBinder, GWT is just a replacement for JavaScript. Not only a replacement for JavaScript, but you work on it as if it was a replacement for JavaScript. All your layouting and design and widgets and everything will be done in HTML. Your web app will run really fast this way. With that said, let's go to Eclipse and create our first presenter. So here on the client package, your views and presenters must be under the client package. I'll click the GWT button here and select presenter. We are going to call this presenter first, but the presenter name should always end with presenter. So here we'll type first presenter. We want to use YBinder, so we'll check this checkbox here, but we are creating a presenter, not a presenter widget, so we don't check the extend presenter widget checkbox here. We'll talk more about presenter widgets later. And since we are not using nested presenters yet, which we'll talk about later also, I'll click the review root content event here. It means that the presenter will take over the whole screen. My presenter is a place, which means the user can navigate to that presenter. Most presenters will be a place. And I want to use code split here. I will talk more about code splitting later. Every presenter needs a name token, which is a simple name that uniquely identifies your presenter. Here I'll use first. It should be a simple under lowercase string. Since we are creating our first presenter, that's usually the start page or the default place. So we have to annotate this place with the default place annotation as soon as the index finishes here. Okay. So double click here, we want to annotate this as the default place. I want to check the onReset checkbox because we use the onReset method most of the time, so let's click it right away. And finish. That screen created 3 files for us: the presenter, the view, and the YBinder XML. So you have the view on the model view presenter pattern is composed of the view class and the YBinder XML file here, and the presenter it's the presenter class. So let's work on it a little bit. Let's add some HTML code to our view and see it working on the browser. So we add HTML inside that HTML panel here. So I'll just add a header here and say Dani's GWTP course. And I'll add a horizontal line, and let's run and see it working on the browser. Dani GWTP, you click the run button here and choose your project configuration. It should be ready. Double click the URL, open your browser. It's okay, loaded. So it was processing, like compiling your Java files, processing everything, and now it's running on my browser. So exactly the HTML that we wrote is here for us to see. And I want you to pay attention at, well, let's return here. So let's see how our HTML enters the DOM, the document object model, in the browser. So here in Chrome, I'll press Ctrl-Shift-C. So here you can see how your DOM is built. And that HTML code is on the only HTML code at your project. You can see that on the war folder, I guess. We'll check that later. If you open the div here, you see exactly what we wrote in HTML there. And the big question here is, what is that div? That div is the HTML panel widget on our YBinder file. So you have complete control over your HTML, and that's a great thing. If you didn't want this div here, you could have put a widget there, and the div wouldn't be here. And your HTML file is here, so everything else we saw on the DOM comes from that HTML file. And after the no script here, the GWT adds the div, some divs, and this is our div, the div that we have control. Now let's add some GWT widgets to our presenter and see it working. So here I'll add a label with text, a text box, I will not set any value on it, and a button. Click me. Okay, save the file, reload the page, and the widgets are there. This is the end of lesson 2. Let's go to lesson 3 now at the next video.